Hello. I wanted to talk about why you should be looking at training as a lifestyle for your dog. Now, a lot of times people can think training is so huge, we need to do this much training, we need to allocate so much time, we need to learn all of these techniques, but really they forget about applying those techniques that they've learned, those very valuable techniques that they've learned in real world situations every single day. And when we think about the amount of times that we could incorporate these skills into our lifestyle every day, we can then see how easy it can become second nature to us simply by just repeating that exercise in a real world situation. So I want to go through a few videos sharing an example, a 5-minute technique that Marco and I did a while ago, and that was teaching your dog how to follow a hand target, and simply just by positioning your hand in a way that you're then asking your dog to follow your hand so they can choose to move a few steps in a different direction, which will then reposition themselves in a more amiable way for your situation. Now, I'm going to show a few videos that outline that a little bit better for you. Now, the first one here is, okay, so Marco and I are getting ready to go for a walk, and I'll be putting Marco's harness on. Now, Marco has positioned himself nicely right there, and that's a very good position, very easy position for me to put the harness on. Now, if Marco had have been standing facing towards me, I would have been able to simply use my follow the hand technique, and he's just had a tension yawn there because he's excited, he wants to go for a walk. Instead, if Marco had been facing towards me, I could have then just used the follow the hand technique and guided Marco a few steps away from me in a different direction to put him in a more suitable position for me to then put his harness on. Or I could have just repositioned myself. But for the purposes of this video, I wanted to talk about using that specific hand target as a skill to ask our dogs to choose to move into a different location to make things a little bit more easier for us in everyday situations. Okay, so the next video is Marco and I. Marco's just standing at the door here, and I'm using the follow the hand technique to say, Marco, can you come back inside, please? And that's fine. Marco's just followed my hand target, and he's come back inside with me. So that's a perfect example. And you'll see also in the next video, that's a perfect example of asking our dog to follow a hand target to get them to choose to move to a different location. In this case, moving back inside the house. Now, the next little video is, what is this one going to be? Okay, so we're at the front door again, and it looks like we might be on our way for a walk. Yes, we're going for a walk. So I'm opening the gate, and I'm asking Marco to follow my hand to come out through the door so we can go for our walk. And Marco obliges. Thank you, Marco. And then we're going off to have our walk. So you can see how that's a really helpful situation, especially if your dog likes to walk through a door before you because they're very excited. You can also ask them for a sit before you do your follow the hand target. So that's another way how the versatility of using a specific hand gesture can be very useful in helping to communicate clearly to your dog what you would like them to do. Now, Marco and I are coming back from our walk, and I'm going to open the gate, and Marco's standing there, so I'm going to ask him to come through using the follow the hand technique. And you can see how that's a very versatile hand gesture, because let's say you were going outside and you weren't sure if there were cars coming down the street or another dog was coming down the street and you wanted to get out of your front gate quite safely. It's a good way to actually be able to ask your dog to sit, check, and then if everything's okay, yes, you can ask your dog to follow your hand out ready for your walk. So that's on the flip side of that. Instead of coming home, you might be leaving your house and wanting to make sure you've got a clear thoroughfare for your dog and yourself before you venture out on your walk. Now, just on that video again, you can also preempt this. If your dog isn't performing it reliably yet, what you can do, we're just playing it again. Now, Marco's had his walk and he's happy to come home. So this is a great time to just use your hand technique, because your dog is going to walk through the door anyway, but preempt that and use your follow the hand technique so you're actually putting that into your lifestyle. And then after a few times, it will become second nature, not to just yourself, but also to your dog. He'll be used to seeing that, and you're then going to incorporate that into your training lifestyle in a consistent way that's reliable and predictable from your dog's point of view as well. So there are two angles from that one video, if you like. Right, so let's have a look at the next video. So this is a really common situation. So you're in the kitchen, you might be cooking lunch or dinner. There's a lot of hustle and bustle. It's a place where food is always present, so your dog is going to be very interested in that space. So how do you make that space less interesting for your dog? Well, I've just diverted Marco's attention with the follow the hand technique over to his mat, but I simply haven't just asked him to sit on his mat and expect him to be happy there. You know, it's important that we give our dogs something that's rewarding from their point of view, and something that's more rewarding than what is going to be in the kitchen. And as you can see, I've just turned the camera around and I've hidden some chicken pieces into that towel and rolled them up. And Marco's having a nice little forage. I can go back to what I was doing in the kitchen. Now I'm making a little bit of noise. Marco's heard me, but he's got something that's really piquing his interest and keeping him occupied, and it's more mentally stimulating than what I was doing before. And once again, I can go back to what I was doing without having to worry about possibly tripping over Marco. And of course, if you've been in that situation, what's the first reaction that you might have? You might actually get upset with your dog and blame your dog for being in the kitchen, but we can't blame them when we understand that the kitchen is a place where food is going to be the number one resource that a dog is going to value very highly. So making that situation rewarding from your dog's point of view, using the follow the hand technique and giving them something that's very rewarding and stimulating from their point of view. This is just a very quick video of asking Marco to jump off the lounge, and I'm using the follow the hand technique. You couldn't see that in the video, but that's a very common situation. Once again, if our dogs are lying on the bed or on the couch and we don't want them on the couch, then it's important that we make us more interesting than the couch. And if you're finding it difficult asking your dog to, or inviting your dog back off the couch, then a good thing to do is actually put your treats in a very noisy, rustly paper bag, that sounds like a crisp packet, because that is the number one sound that's going to get your dog's attention, and they're going to think that something very exciting is on its way. And that's a good way to then encourage your dog and motivate your dog to want to jump off the lounge and come towards you. And you can incorporate your follow the hand technique with that clever little strategy as well. Just in relation to the last video with Marco jumping off the couch, you might have seen in previous videos we do have an armchair here. Now that's a little bit higher, and of course the floor downstairs here is a hard floor rather than carpet. Now I could have tried to show you an example using the chair, but I know that that's too high for Marco. So keep in mind, when your dog is able to have access to a bed or a couch or a lounge, just be mindful of when you might be asking them, or when you need to ask them to come off, or when you'd like them to come off that area. If it is too high, I'd prefer you just to calmly walk over to your dog. You can offer them a treat, just calmly pick them up and just put them on the ground gently, and then use your follow the hand and say, let's go, or this way, to continue that technique. So just be mindful of your dog's age, size, weight, their mobility, and also the floor surface as well. And don't encourage jumping off or jumping up onto things where they may be a little bit too high. Now the last video is an excerpt from the follow the hand video and the 5-minute technique video that Marco and I did. And here we have Marco in an off-leash park. He's the only dog there. I'm doing the follow the hand target, that technique, and Marco's following my hand and he's coming back to me. So that's another real-world situation that is very important. But just be mindful, once again, there was no distractions in that park. I don't take Marco to off-leash parks. Marco's personality and his demeanour is not suited to those situations, and I can't predict what other people's dogs are going to do, so I prefer to provide Marco with things that are more mentally stimulating and rewarding from his perspective. But just be mindful that when you're wanting to teach your dog to come to you using the follow the hand technique or any recall technique, that you slowly incorporate minimal distractions, so you're not overwhelming your dog and making it difficult and making it less likely for your dog to be successful in those situations. So overall, I just wanted you to think about training in a different light. thinking of it as a lifestyle. And the main reasons are, of course, is because you're going to change the situation for your dog. You're going to change your dog's emotional state. You're going to be able to divert their behaviour into something that's desirable, that you can reward, and that you can engage them from their perspective into something rewarding and fulfilling. And you're also saying yes to your dog when you're rewarding them for behaviours that you want to see, that you find desirable. The most powerful thing with seeing training as a lifestyle is that you are communicating clearly with your dog, using unique hand gestures, and you're, in essence, developing a unique conversation and language that you and your dog understand. And when you're changing your dog's undesirable behaviour into something that is desirable and rewarding, not just from your perspective, but also from your dog's perspective, you do tend to change your emotional state simply because your dog's responding to you in the way that you'd like them to. And that does change your emotional state. And the most important outcome of that change of your emotional state is that it reconnects your dog with you every single day. So I hope you find the value in this video and you'll start looking at training as a lifestyle and seeing it as a lifestyle. And we'll talk again soon.